Seeing as we've all been confined to our homes for these past few months, if you're anything like me, you've probably been consuming quite a bit of content in that time. And if that's the case, then you've probably also been seeing ads like these way more than you'd prefer.
You gotta leave. I'll be one of them in less than a Quibi.
What?
I'll be out in a Quibi, Kendall.
Your train will be here in just a Quibi.
The asteroid's impact is imminent.
How long do we have?
2, 3 Quibis, tops.
30 minutes. You got this. Let's go.
Don't be a psychopath, Mark. I'll go for a Quibi.
So after hearing Chrissy Teigen say the word Quibi for what seemed like the 982nd time, and still having absolutely no idea what the hell this thing was supposed to be, I came to the conclusion that there was no way any competent media company would sign off on an ad campaign like this. That is, unless Quibi's marketing department just so happens to be where Gretchen from Mean Girls ended up after all these years.
That is so...
Quibi.
Gretchen, stop trying to make
Quibi.
happen. It's not going to happen.
And upon some further investigation, I found even more ads that I somehow hadn't seen before.
What is Quibi? What kind of question is that?
Is Quibi a noun or a verb?
I used to know a barber named Quibi.
I've got Quibi and I need to go to the hospital right now.
What is Quibi? Couldn't tell ya.
I think it stands for quiet bingo.
I love to munch on a Quibi.
And based on those, it seems to me that Gretchen and her coworkers at Quibi don't know what the hell this thing is supposed to be either. So I decided to do some research of my own. And beyond finding out that the name Quibi is actually just shorthand for quick bites, because apparently having a stupid name wasn't enough and it needed a stupid reasoning too, the only real useful information I could find about the platform was that it's a new streaming service with a focus on short-form content. Very informative, as you can tell. At first I thought, oh great, another streaming service, just what we all needed. But then again, hey, at least they're trying to do something a bit different, instead of just releasing a run-of-the-mill streaming service like seemingly every other entertainment corporation in the world right now. However, the more I looked into this supposedly revolutionary new platform, the more intrigued I became by the seemingly incompetent and completely out of touch decision making done by Quibi's leadership. So get ready, because I'm finally about to answer the question that no one outside of the service's own ads has been asking. What the fuck is a Quibi? Quibi, back when it was still under its previous and much better name, New TV, was founded in 2018 by former Disney and DreamWorks executive Jeffrey Katzenberg, who helped produce many hit movies over the past few decades like these. After Bloomberg LP's 2013 Most Underachieving CEO, Meg Whitman, stepped down from her position at Hewlett-Packard the year prior, Katzenberg made her the offer to be the very first employee and acting CEO of his new streaming service, which would become the first in a long line of questionable business decisions in this story. Not long after that, and no doubt thanks to Katzenberg's reputation, industry connections, and history of producing hits, the duo were able to get quite a few large investors on board their new project, including Disney, NBC Universal, Sony, Viacom, Warner Media, and many more, by selling the idea as a mobile-based Netflix designed specifically for smartphones. But instead of just laughing in their face and simply pointing out that Netflix and basically every other streaming service on the market all already have apps specifically designed to be used on smartphones, these executives decided to invest a total of $1.8 billion of seed capital into this brand new platform. By comparison, at its equivalent stage in its development, YouTube was only able to generate around $3.5 million in seed capital, about 1/500th of Quibi's initial funds. And of that $1.8 billion, Quibi chose to spend around $1.1 billion of it on commissioning creators to produce original content to launch on its service within its first year alone, totaling around 8,500 short-form episodes of over 175 different shows on the platform. Additionally, they promised to deliver Hollywood-level production values while still committing themselves to producing content created specifically for the modern and mobile media consumer. In order to do this, Quibi attracted top talent throughout the industry, including A-list actors, writers, and directors, with promises of creative freedom, sizable budgets, and the fact that the new platform represented virgin creative soil for them to explore their most wild and strangest ideas. So now that you know what the hell Quibi is, you're probably wondering, what happened? Experienced, albeit questionable leadership, top industry talent, a focus on the ever-growing streaming industry, an emphasis on providing creators with unlimited freedom, and a fuck ton of cash. They had it all, so how could it fail so spectacularly? Well, ironically, by very quickly biting off much more than they could chew. To give some context, Quibi officially launched on April 6, 2020, just as the coronavirus pandemic started to take hold of most of the world, and initially, all seemed to be going just as planned. According to CEO Meg Whitman, Quibi rose to number 3 in Apple's App Store on its launch day and reached over 1.7 million downloads in its first week alone. A seemingly impressive feat until you remember that the service offered a 90-day free trial at launch. However, as its leadership would soon come to find out, an impressive amount of initial downloads doesn't necessarily guarantee success, especially given the fact that audience engagement, retention, and word of mouth are much more indicative metrics in terms of a successful platform launch. So, unsurprisingly, by mid-May, Quibi had already lost nearly 2/3 of its users, which is actually pretty amusing considering those subscribers were only a third of the way through their free trial period before deciding the service wasn't worth it. And by mid-June, the Quibi app had fallen to number 284 on Apple's App Store, and it was being reported that the company was considering laying off 10% of its over 250 employees, after its executives had already been forced to take a 10% pay cut. By July, it was being forecasted that the new streaming service could potentially lose up to $1 billion in its first year of operation, leading to a shitstorm of bad press and jokes at the service's expense. Now, you may be wondering what Quibi's founder had to say about this multi-billion-dollar blunder of a launch. Well, according to a New York Times quote from the 69-year-old Katzenberg, he stated, "I attribute everything that has gone wrong to coronavirus." And in case the defensive and absolutist tone of that statement wasn't enough to clue you in, this claim is about 95% untrue. While it's easy to see how an international pandemic forcing people to remain in their homes could negatively affect the launch of a mobile-focused media platform, especially one aimed at commuters and young professionals on the move, to put the blame on that exclusively is almost laughable. In fact, many of Quibi's direct competitors in the streaming space have even reported increased levels of viewership and new subscriptions due to the effects of quarantine. Netflix, for example, reportedly gained around 16 million new subscribers globally within the first quarter of this year alone. Of course, Netflix has been around a lot longer and is a much more established service in this industry, so that's not too surprising. However, it does prove that Quibi's user retention issues aren't due to the ongoing pandemic, but rather the underlying issues of the platform itself. Therefore, to explain what really happened to Quibi, I've broken it down into 3 different categories which I believe to be the main causes of this massive failure: spending and content quality issues, poor in-app implementation, and out-of-touch leadership. To start with the most obvious issue, Quibi is a paid service in an industry that is being increasingly dominated by platforms offering similar content but for free, such as YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok, Twitch, or even Facebook and Twitter. The service starts off at $4.99 a month with ads, or $7.99 a month without ads. Yes, you heard that right. Unless you opt for the premium subscription, you're still going to be getting ads despite paying that subscription fee. So it leaves a lot of potential subscribers wondering whether the Hollywood-level production values that Quibi boasts as its main selling point are really worth the asking price, especially given how many alternatives are readily available with arguably better content at no cost to the consumer whatsoever. Which brings me to the second part of this category, which is that when it comes to its content, Quibi has the classic problem of too much quantity and not enough quality. By comparison, when Netflix initially introduced its first original series, they used a scalpel approach, meaning they strategically used their available funds to produce a small amount of well-made and critically acclaimed shows to serve as examples of the quality viewers should come to expect out of their future original programming. But evidently, Quibi didn't agree with this strategy and instead chose to go with more of a sledgehammer approach, hoping to flood its platform with so much mildly entertaining, short-lived content filled with recognizable names and faces that subscribers wouldn't notice its lack of quality. To accomplish this, Quibi's executives decided to focus on producing content falling into 3 specific genres: movies in chapters, unscripted and docs, and daily essentials. But in a world where everyone with internet access has an endless amount of whatever content they could ever want available to them at any moment of the day, there's really just nothing special about the programming Quibi has to offer. Consumers don't care about the production value of the content if the content itself is being described as mediocre offcuts and B-sides that the studios rejected. Hell, I'd rather watch TikTok dance compilations, to be honest. At least those are free. Moving on to the next category, I'd like to also address the incompetent decision making that was used when deciding how the app itself would operate. To start off with the most blatant offense, Quibi as a service is currently only available on mobile devices, even going as far to advertise the app's ability to shift between horizontal and vertical viewing modes in real time as one of its main features, since apparently Katzenberg didn't listen to enough Childish Gambino.
Yo, my man, you gotta turn that shit like sideways like that shit.
Obviously, this decision was made in order to emphasize the service's focus on providing content for the modern professional's daily commute. However, given that almost everyone is working from home and not commuting at the moment, this supposed advantage of the app has really turned out to be more of a detriment. And in a related note, the app's mobile exclusivity has also made it very difficult to watch any of Quibi's content with any more than maybe one other person, unless you all want to huddle around one of your friends' iPhones. This severely limits the word-of-mouth potential of the service and diminishes the communal aspect of consuming content that many consider to be a vital part of the experience. Furthermore, the in-app restrictions become even more strict when trying to share and discuss Quibi's content on other social media platforms. You'd think that a streaming service focused on the modern young professional would realize the advantages of allowing subscribers to screenshot or even screen record small parts of its content, but that apparently wasn't the case with Quibi. In our modern, hyper-connected world, something as simple as a meme or a funny clip from a certain scene of a particular show can grow in popularity online so much that it can actually increase the viewership and the amount of buzz surrounding that show by a massive amount. However, Quibi's executives seemingly failed to take note of this potential for positive online word of mouth and chose to prohibit its users from screen recording or even just screenshotting anything on their phone screen while they're in the app. Now, Netflix and many other streaming services have similar systems in place, but they're also much more well-established brands within this space and therefore don't have as much need for positive buzz as a new entrant such as Quibi. Additionally, the aforementioned fact that Quibi's content is locked to mobile platforms means that users can't even use their phones to record a funny moment from their favorite series as it plays on their TV like they can with Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, or really any other streaming service. In order to do this on Quibi, you'd literally have to use two separate phones. One with the app up to play the actual content itself, and another just to record the clip you want off the first phone screen, which is exactly what this Twitter user had to do just to share the one piece of Quibi content that I've seen go anywhere close to viral since the service's launch months ago. Quibi has also decided to adopt a unique release model for its content, opting to release its various 5 to 10 minute episodes on a day-to-day basis, rather than the all episodes at once approach used by Netflix or the weekly release schedule utilized by competitors such as HBO Max or Disney+. This isn't inherently bad in and of itself, and I can respect the fact that they're trying to provide some much-needed innovation within the streaming space, but it does limit the binge-watching potential of their original series and can be frustrating for those who like to enjoy their content in full all in one sitting. It's almost as if they wanted the best of both worlds, sitting somewhere in between the two aforementioned release models, but in the process have somehow managed to eliminate the advantages of both and make no one happy. To give an example, imagine you somehow find some content on Quibi that you legitimately enjoy. Things are getting exciting, the gunshots are getting closer, people are screaming, and then boom, sorry, but you'll have to wait 24 hours until you can see who the fuck just blew up. Who wants that? That's like the streaming service equivalent to when you finally find someone hot on Tinder, only to run out of likes at that very moment. This leads me to my third and final category of why Quibi has failed so spectacularly, which is their incompetent, arrogant, and out-of-touch leadership, referring mainly to founder Jeffrey Katzenberg and current CEO Meg Whitman. In an interview with Vulture, writer-director Scott Gardner, who was brought into Quibi HQ to pitch a prospective series for the new platform, was even quoted as saying, "I can honestly say I've never been in such a cocky pitch environment." To give you an idea of what he's talking about here, I'd like to highlight two quotes from author Benjamin Wallace featured in the same Vulture article. When talking about Katzenberg, Wallace states, "When Gal Gadot came to the offices and delivered an impassioned speech about wanting to elevate the voices of girls and women, Katzenberg wondered aloud whether she might become the new Jane Fonda and do a workout series for Quibi. Apparently, her face fell," says a person briefed on the meeting. And regarding Whitman, Wallace writes, "When I asked her what TV shows she watches, she responded, 'I'm not sure I'd classify myself as an entertainment enthusiast, but any particular shows she does like? Grant,' she offered, on the History Channel. It's about President Grant. Why the hell two people in their mid to late 60s thought they could effectively spearhead a modern-day streaming company focused on young professionals is beyond me. But there's no doubt that they certainly allowed their past success to cloud their current judgment, and their role in the failure of this new platform cannot be overstated. Whether it's their deflection of blame onto the coronavirus pandemic, or the arrogant, self-praising, and ego-fueled statements they've made in defense of their decisions since Quibi's launch, it's clear that these two wannabe innovators need to either drastically change their approach to running this new platform, or step down from their respective roles and let people who actually know what the hell they're doing take the wheel. So outside of a change in leadership, where does Quibi go from here? Well, to be honest with you, I'm not really sure. It's clear that the platform certainly has potential, with its breadth of original content, established relationships with A-list talent, and sizable amount of remaining funds to put towards improvements. But it's also abundantly clear that their captains are steering them straight into iceberg after iceberg. And with all the negative press they've been getting recently, it seems to me if they don't correct their course soon, there isn't much hope for Quibi staying around much longer, especially for long enough to really capitalize on their original target demographic once we all eventually return to our daily commutes. But that's just my opinion, and I'd love to hear what you think too. So what do you think Quibi should do going forward? Have you ever used it, or found any content on it that you would deem worthy of its asking price? And do you think there's any chance they can still survive after all of these setbacks? Let me know in the comments below, and please consider leaving a like and maybe even subscribing if you like this type of content and want to see more. Thank you all so much for watching the first episode of Times New American, and have a fantastic rest of your day.